Hey there, have you ever found yourself holding on to people who are slowly destroying you? Maybe they're friends, a partner, or even family, but being around them makes you feel small, drained, or broken. And yet you can't let go because you still hope they'll change. If this sounds like you, I want you to know something important. You don't need to feel guilty for changing, for choosing yourself and walking away. My name is Name. And today I want to talk to you about how to let go of toxic relationships, embrace the changes you need to make for your own well-being, and do it all without the guilt. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and let's dive into this together. I've been exactly where you are right now. For years I held on to people who were tearing me apart emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually. There was this one friend, I'll call her Sarah, who I'd known since we were teenagers. Back in high school we were inseparable. We'd stay up late talking about our dreams, laughing until we couldn't breathe, and supporting each other through the toughest moments. I thought she'd be in my life forever. But as we grew older, something shifted. Sarah became someone who constantly criticized me, belittled my achievements, and made me feel like I was never good enough. I'd share something I was excited about, like a new project I was working on, and she'd say things like, "That's cute, but it's probably not going to work out," or "Why would you even bother with that?" Her words cut deep, and every time I was around her, I'd leave feeling worse about myself than I did before, but I couldn't let go. I kept thinking, she's been there for me before, maybe she'll change. Maybe if I try harder, if I'm a better friend, she'll go back to being the person she used to be. I was holding on to the hope that she'd transform into the friend I once knew, but deep down, I knew she was destroying me, and the hardest part, I felt so guilty for even thinking about walking away. I kept telling myself, what kind of friend am I if I leave her? What if she needs me? What if I'm being selfish by changing and putting myself first? But here's what I learned through a lot of reflection and pain. You don't have to keep holding on to people who hurt you. And you absolutely don't need to feel guilty for changing, for growing, for evolving, for choosing yourself. The truth is, we often hold on to people who hurt us because we're scared of what letting go means. We tell ourselves it's about love, loyalty, or the history we share with them. But if you dig deeper, you'll realize it's not always about love. Sometimes it's about the fear of being alone. We're scared of the emptiness that might come when we walk away. We're scared of not having anyone, of starting over, of facing the world on our own. I felt that fear so deeply with Sarah. I thought, if I let go of her, who will I have left? What if I end up completely alone? What if I can't handle it? But staying in a toxic relationship out of fear isn't love, it's self-destruction. And you deserve so much better than that. Today, I'm going to walk you through 5 actionable steps that helped me let go of toxic relationships, embrace the changes I needed to make for myself, and find peace without the guilt. These steps aren't just about walking away, they're about rediscovering your worth, understanding why you're holding on, and building a life that feels good. Let's get started. Step 1. Recognize the damage they're doing to you. The first step is to recognize the damage these people are doing to you. Sometimes we're so used to the pain that we don't even notice how much it's affecting us. It becomes normal to feel drained, anxious, or insecure after spending time with certain people, and we just accept it as part of the relationship. With Sarah, I didn't realize how much her words were hurting me until I started paying attention to how I felt after our interactions. I'd feel anxious, insecure, and worthless. I'd second-guess everything I did because of her constant criticism. There was this one moment that really opened my eyes. I told her about a promotion I was up for at work. I was so excited, I'd worked hard for it. And she just smirked and said, "Good luck with that, they'll probably pick someone more qualified." I went home that night and cried. I felt so small, like I didn't deserve to even try. It wasn't until I sat down and really thought about it that I saw the pattern. She was tearing me down, and I was letting her. I started keeping a journal to track how I felt after our conversations, and it became so clear, she was toxic for me. Every entry was the same. Felt worthless after talking to Sarah, doubted myself because of what she said, felt drained and sad. Seeing it written down made it impossible to ignore. Try this right now. Think about the person you're holding on to. How do you feel when you're around them? Do they make you feel loved, supported, and valued, or do they make you feel small, drained, or broken? Be honest with yourself. Maybe grab a notebook or even the Notes app on your phone and write down how they make you feel. Be specific. Write down the moments when they made you feel bad, the things they said that hurt you. Recognizing the damage is the first step to understanding that you don't have to keep letting this happen. You're not here to be someone's emotional punching bag. You deserve relationships that lift you up, not tear you down. How does it feel to acknowledge that? It might be hard, it might even bring up some pain, but it's the first step toward freedom. You're worth more than the pain they're causing, and you don't have to keep accepting it. Step 2. Stop waiting for them to change. The second step is to stop waiting for them to change. This is where so many of us get stuck. We hold on because we hope they'll become the person we want them to be, the person we think they could be if only they tried. I did this with Sarah for years. I kept thinking, if I'm patient, if I'm a better friend, she'll stop being so negative. She'll see how much she's hurting me and change. I'd make excuses for her behavior, telling myself, she's just going through a tough time, or she doesn't mean it, she's just stressed. I'd replay the good memories we had, the times she was kind, the times we laughed together, and I'd tell myself that version of her was still in there somewhere. But the truth is, you can't change people. They have to want to change themselves. And while you're waiting for them to become someone they're not, you're putting your own life on hold, sacrificing your own happiness for a fantasy that might never come true. I remember one moment that hit me like a ton of bricks. Sarah made a snarky comment about my appearance in front of a group of friends. I was wearing a new outfit I felt good in, and she said, "Wow, bold choice, but it's not really your style." I felt humiliated, like everyone was staring at me, judging me. I went home and thought, how much longer am I going to wait for her to be kind? How many more times am I going to let her make me feel like this? How many more years am I going to waste hoping for something that might never happen? That was the moment I realized I couldn't keep waiting. Try this right now. Ask yourself, how long have I been hoping they'll change? Be honest. Maybe it's been months, maybe years. Now ask yourself, what if they never change? Am I willing to keep feeling this way for the rest of my life? If the answer is no, it's time to let go of that hope. It doesn't mean you don't care about them, it means you care about yourself more. You deserve to stop waiting and start living. Letting go of that hope might feel scary, it might feel like you're giving up, but it's not giving up on them, it's giving yourself a chance to heal. You've waited long enough, and you deserve to move forward. Step 3. Admit it's about fear, not love. The third step is to admit that holding on isn't always about love, it's often about the fear of being alone. This realization was a game changer for me. I thought I was staying friends with Sarah because I loved her, because we had so much history. We'd been through so much together, late-night talks, shared secrets, supporting each other through breakups and hard times. I didn't want to lose that. I didn't want to lose her. But when I dug deeper, when I really sat with my feelings, I realized I was scared of what letting go would mean. I didn't want to lose the connection, even if it was toxic. I was scared of being alone, of not having that familiar presence in my life. I kept thinking, if I let go of Sarah, who will I have left? What if I don't find anyone else who gets me? What if I can't handle being on my own? I was terrified of the loneliness, of the silence that might come after walking away. But staying in a relationship out of fear isn't love, it's a trap. And the longer you stay, the more it destroys you. Once I understood that my attachment to Sarah was more about fear than love, it became easier to let go. I had to face that fear head-on and realize that being alone wasn't the worst thing. Staying in a toxic relationship was. I started imagining what my life could look like without her, and while it was scary, it was also exciting. I thought, maybe being alone means I'll have space to find myself again. Maybe it means I'll meet new people who actually make me feel good. Try this right now. Ask yourself, am I holding on because I love them, or because I'm scared of being alone? Be honest with yourself. Maybe you're scared of the loneliness, of starting over, of not having anyone to turn to. Maybe you're worried about what people will think if you walk away. Maybe you're scared they'll judge you for giving up on the relationship. But here's the truth. Being alone is better than being with someone who destroys you. And you're stronger than you think. You can handle being on your own. In fact, being alone gives you the space to rediscover yourself, to figure out who you are without their negativity weighing you down. Admit that it's fear, not love, keeping you stuck, and you'll find the clarity you need to walk away. You're not abandoning them, you're choosing yourself, and that's a powerful, brave choice. Step 4. Let go and embrace the change without guilt. The fourth step is to let go and embrace the change without guilt. This is one of the hardest parts because we often feel so guilty for walking away, especially if we've been taught to always put others first, to always be the good friend, partner, or family member. I felt terrible when I decided to distance myself from Sarah. I kept thinking, what if she needs me? What if she's going through something and I'm not there for her? What if I'm being selfish by changing and putting myself first? I'd replay our good memories in my head, the time she was there for me when I was struggling, the times we laughed together, and I'd feel like I was betraying her by walking away. I'd lie awake at night wondering if I was doing the right thing, if I was being a bad person. But then I realized something. I wasn't responsible for her happiness. I was responsible for mine, and staying in a relationship that was destroying me wasn't helping either of us. It wasn't making her a better person, and it was making me miserable. Letting go doesn't make you a bad person, it makes you someone who values their own well-being. And changing doesn't make you selfish, it makes you someone who's growing, someone who's brave enough to choose a better life. I started by setting boundaries with Sarah. I told her I needed space and I stopped responding to her messages as often. I'd say things like, "I'm really busy right now, I'll catch up with you later," even though I knew I needed that space permanently. Eventually, I let the friendship fade completely. I unfollowed her on social media, stopped reaching out and focused on myself. And you know what? I felt free. The guilt was there at first. I'd catch myself wondering if I'd made the right choice. But over time, I realized I had nothing to feel guilty about. I was choosing my peace, and that's not something to feel bad about. Try this right now. Think about the person you need to let go of. Imagine telling them, "I need to step away for my own well-being. I'm changing, and that's okay." How does that feel? If guilt comes up, remind yourself you're not responsible for fixing them. You're not their savior. You're responsible for healing yourself. Letting go doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough about yourself to walk away from what's hurting you. And changing doesn't mean you're abandoning them. It means you're growing into the person you're meant to be. You don't need to feel guilty for choosing your peace. You don't need to feel guilty for changing. You deserve to feel good, and you can't do that if you're constantly being torn down. Give yourself permission to let go and embrace the changes you need to make for yourself. Step 5. Build a life that fills you up and supports your growth. The fifth step is to build a life that fills you up and supports your growth. When you let go of toxic relationships, you create space for new, healthier ones, and for yourself. After I distanced myself from Sarah, I felt a mix of emotions. There was relief, but there was also loneliness. I'd spent so much time with her that I didn't know what to do with myself at first. I'd find myself reaching for my phone to text her, only to remember that I couldn't anymore. But I decided to use that space to focus on the things that made me feel alive, the things that supported the person I wanted to become. I started spending more time with friends who lifted me up, who made me feel valued. I reconnected with an old friend, Jake, who I hadn't talked to in years because Sarah didn't like him. Jake was the kind of person who always made me laugh, who listened without judgment, who celebrated my wins with me. We'd go for coffee and talk for hours, and I'd leave feeling so much lighter. Being around him reminded me what real friendship felt like, what it felt like to be supported. I also picked up hobbies I'd neglected, like painting and hiking. I'd always loved painting as a kid, but I stopped because Sarah once said my art was amateur and not worth showing anyone. After letting her go, I bought a canvas and some paints and started creating again. I'd spend hours painting, losing myself in the colors and shapes, and it felt so good to do something just for me, something that brought me joy without anyone's criticism. I also started hiking on weekends. I'd find a trail near my city, pack a backpack with some water and snacks, and just walk for hours. Being in nature, surrounded by trees and fresh air, made me feel grounded, like I was reconnecting with myself. I also started journaling to process my emotions and figure out what I really wanted. I'd write down things like, what do I want my life to look like? Who do I want to be now that I'm changing? What kind of people do I want around me? And slowly, I built a life that felt good, a life that was mine. I realized that being alone wasn't something to fear. It was an opportunity to rediscover myself. I started going on solo hikes, spending mornings sipping coffee at my favorite cafe, and even taking myself out to dinner. I'd sit at a table for one, order my favorite meal, and just enjoy my own company. I learned to love being with myself, and that was a game changer. I also joined a local art group where I met people who shared my interests, people who encouraged me to keep creating, who loved seeing my paintings. These new connections reminded me that there are people out there who will support you, who will celebrate you, who will make you feel good about yourself. Try this right now. Think about what fills you up, what supports the person you're becoming, what makes you feel alive. Maybe it's spending time with people who make you laugh, maybe it's a hobby you've always loved, or maybe it's just quiet time to reflect. Start building a life that makes you feel good, a life that supports your growth. Surround yourself with people who support you, who make you feel seen and loved, and give yourself permission to enjoy your own company. You don't need toxic people to feel whole. You're enough on your own. And when you fill your life with things that bring you joy, with people who lift you up, you'll see that letting go was the best decision you could have made. It's not about losing people, it's about gaining yourself, about becoming the person you're meant to be. Let me share one more thing before we wrap up. After I let go of Sarah, I didn't just feel relief. I felt empowered. I realized how much energy I'd been giving to someone who didn't deserve it, how much of myself I'd been sacrificing to keep her in my life. And I started redirecting that energy toward myself and the people who truly cared about me. I started a gratitude practice. Every night I'd write down 3 things I was thankful for that day. Sometimes it was as simple as, I'm grateful for a sunny day, or I'm grateful for a good conversation with Jake. Other times it was deeper, like, I'm grateful I'm learning to value myself, or I'm grateful I had the courage to let go of what was hurting me. That practice helped me focus on the good in my life, and it made me realize how much better off I was without Sarah's negativity. It wasn't always easy. There were days I missed her, days I questioned if I'd done the right thing. I'd see something that reminded me of her, a song we used to love, a place we used to hang out, and I'd feel a pang of sadness. But every time I felt that doubt, I'd remind myself, I chose myself, and that's enough. I'd look at the life I was building, the person I was becoming, and I'd know I made the right choice. You can do that too. Letting go isn't the end, it's the beginning of something so much better. It's the beginning of a life where you get to be yourself, where you get to feel good, where you get to grow without anyone holding you back. These 5 steps changed everything for me. You don't have to hold on to people who destroy you, and you don't need to feel guilty for changing. Admit that it's not always about love, sometimes it's about the fear of being alone. But you're stronger than that fear. Letting go of Sarah was hard, but it gave me my life back. I'm happier now, surrounded by people who genuinely care about me, who support the person I'm becoming. I've learned to love my own company, and I've built a life that feels good, a life that's mine. I'm not the same person I was when I was friends with Sarah. I've changed, and I'm proud of that. And I believe you can do this too. Let me know in the comments, who are you holding on to that's hurting you? How are you going to use these steps to let go and embrace the changes you need to make? Maybe you have your own ways of dealing with toxic relationships. Share them, I'd love to hear, and I'm sure other viewers would too. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. We'll work on building healthier relationships and becoming our best selves together. You deserve peace, you deserve joy, and you don't have to feel guilty for changing into the person you're meant to be. See you in the next video.